Hi guys, welcome back. I hope you're all well. It's been just freezing in Switzerland today. I'm in a super big hoodie. I hope you're well. I just wanted to explain why I was in a hoodie, because it's not that late in the year. Anyway, that's not today's topic. Today's topic is one that has been requested quite a lot, and it's basically, can eating disorders be considered self-harm? So that's what we're gonna talk about today. So first, let's just start with the definitions. What is self-harm? What is an eating disorder? So as I talked about in this video, if you want to go a bit more in depth in the definition of self-harm, the definition that is the most accurate to me is the deliberate self-inflicted destruction of body tissue done without suicidal intention and for purpose not socially or culturally sanctioned. If you want to know a bit more about exactly what this means, go check out this video. So now for the definition of an eating disorder. I actually had quite a hard time finding official, I guess you could say, definition of what an eating disorder is. So here is the one I found. It's the one made by the National Institution for Mental Health. That's the best I could find. And different eating disorders can be quite different, so yeah. So the one I found was a severe medical illness marked by a severe disturbance of a person's eating behavior. Quite large definition. So first, what do these two have in common? What do self-harm and eating disorders have in common? So if you look at the definition of self-harm, they have quite a lot in common. They both are self-inflicted, no one else is hurting you or forcing you not to eat. They're both deliberate, they're not done on accident or by force from someone else, like by, I don't know, blackmailing or something like that. They both harm the body. Eating disorders are very, very harmful on your whole body. You can find pages and pages of anorexias or bulimias or any eating disorders effect on your body. It does put a real strain on your whole system over time. Both are also done without suicidal intention. That doesn't mean that the person isn't also experiencing suicidal ideation or even attempt, but the self-harm or the eating disorder is not done to make yourself die. It's not made as a suicide attempt. It can result in death, and a lot of eating disorders can result in death, and so can self-harm, but it's not the primary goal, so they have that in common too. And I think what most people think about when they say that self-harm and eating disorders are the same, or rather that eating disorders are a type of self-harm, is that they're both what I would call personally coping disorders. So a disorder where you use a behavior to cope with something that you can't cope with. And in that means that they can have motivations that are very, very similar. So I did 2 videos, you can go see them here, when I go over the most common reason why people would self-harm, at least the ones that I've encountered. And I think that most of these reasons, so like punishing yourself, feeling like you're in control and stuff like that, that I cited in these videos, can also be the reasons why someone would use eating disorder typed behavior to cope. And I think that this is also something that you could say about other so-called coping disorder, if you want to call them this way. So like drug addiction, maybe OCD or stuff like that. I think that all these disorders that have in common the fact that they use a certain behavior can have quite similar motivations behind them. So they seem to have quite a lot of similarities. So what are the differences between self-harm and eating disorders? To discuss that, I will look again at the ISSS website, which is the International Society for Study of Self-Injury, which is the organization that came up with the definition of self-harm that I used at the beginning of this video. So they go a bit more in depth about what they mean with certain parts of the definition, and I think that's really when you can see the differences between the two and why they actually aren't the same. I think it becomes clearer when they explain what they mean by deliberate and what they mean by destruction of body tissue. So first difference for me between an eating disorder and self-harm is the harm intentional or the first goal? I'll read to you what the ISSS says about that, so let me get my laptop. First, the harm that results from self-injury is an intentional or expected consequence of the behavior. Risky behaviors that could result in harm, such as not wearing a seatbelt while driving, or accidental harm that may occur when playing extreme sports, are typically excluded in our definition. So when you're talking about self-harm, harming yourself is the main goal. The goal is to hurt yourself. Now you may have different reasons to why you're hurting yourself, but the injury is the main goal. A lot of the time in eating disorders, the harm is either non-intentional. Some people just don't intend on hurting their body so much, but they just are so consumed by their illness that they end up hurting themselves significantly. Or maybe it's just not the first goal, so they know they're gonna hurt themselves, but it's not the first goal. The second difference between eating disorder and self-harm is, was the harm immediate or did it build up over time? And once again, I'm gonna read to you what the ISSS says about this part. Second, self-injury usually results in some sort of immediate physical injury, including cuts, bruises, scratches, or marks on the skin. Behaviors that do not directly result in injuries are usually excluded, even though they may be harmful or dangerous. For instance, food restriction is typically not considered a form of self-injury, since the associated physical damage tends to build up over time instead of happening all at once when the behavior occurs. So I think that's a pretty important distinction too, because if you include in self-harm everything that is either self-destructive or that harms you in the long run or even harms you emotionally, I think that basically almost every negative situation becomes self-harm, and I really don't think that's useful in treating it, and I don't think that it's useful in recognizing it. So technically some typical eating disorder behavior could be classified as self-harm if you go by what the ISSS has to say. Something like, I don't know, making yourself throw up to make your throat bleed, so this is immediate harm and the harm is the main goal and is intentional. That is an eating disorder behavior, but that could also be self-harm. So in some specific cases, I think that eating disorder and self-harm can overlap, but I think most of the time they are two separate things, even though they are pretty similar. So in the end, I just wanted to talk a bit about why I think this is important to differentiate between self-harm and eating disorders, because I think some people might say, well, they're pretty similar anyway, why do the distinction between the two? They're both mental health conditions, they both are coping disorders, they're both affecting your body, why make the distinction? I think it's important to make this distinction basically to get better help for each condition, because some treatment for ED may not work for self-harm, so, and vice versa. And I think we need specified treatment and awareness and all of that for each issue. Just like we need awareness, treatment, and so on, that are different for Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. They're both neurological diseases, they both occur mostly in elderly. They may look similar, they may occur together, but they are two different disorders and they both are treated in different ways, because that's how they are treated the best and that's what leads to the best outcome in the patients. So they are pretty similar, eating disorders and self-harm, and in some cases they might overlap, but I think in most cases they are two different things and I think it should mostly stay that way. Another type of comments that I often get when I talk about this type of thing, so eating disorders not being the same as self-harm, is some people saying, well, my therapist actually told me that self-harm could be a type of eating disorder, and even one of what I consider the best therapists here on YouTube, Katie Morden, has done a video on that I will also link here, that actually says that eating disorders are a kind of self-harm. But yeah, anyway, thank you for watching, guys. Please tell me if you disagree with me. Leave it in the comments and tell me why you disagree, because I really want to have a discussion with you, as always. If you want to chat with me, you can hit me up on Instagram, as always, link in the description. I answer every DM I get, and I will see you in my next video next week. Bye, guys.